this community is suffering from a lot of murders, thug life, young men killing each other, and they don't have the guts, the moral guts, to call out what's actually happening on the street. That's a lifestyle thing. And then when it gets to them and the time to lock up the people who have behaved badly, they don't have the guts to do that either. So Tim Kaine came out and made that statement about Winsome Sears, all about politics. All these Democrats attacking Winsome Sears because they know she's right. And they're worried that black citizens who they feel like they've got locked up within the Democratic Party might suddenly go, now, wait a minute, this black woman from Jamaica, she's telling us the truth, and we agree with her. And maybe they don't normally vote Republican, but they like someone who shoots straight with them. That's why Tim Kaine came out. Tim Kaine, did he call WRVA and say, hey, John, I'd like to have a sit down and talk about that? No. He knows Winsome Sears is right. And I want to see more Republicans defend Winsome Sears because she is right. It was bold and it was correct. And the reason we continue to see this violence is that the Democrats who run Richmond, Virginia, have consistently allowed violence. And now they ask, is nothing sacred? No, nothing is sacred. That's because of you guys. That's because of you. And you need to own it. 7:08 on this Friday morning. I'm John Reid. You're listening to News Radio WRVA. I have to say, someone who did come out immediately and put out a statement on Facebook that sounded remarkably like what Winsome Sears said is Senator Amanda Chase, who represents Chesterfield County. Now, Chesterfield's one of the places I would go to try to stay safe and avoid the daily carnage in Richmond. But even Chesterfield's being affected by this, just like my home county, Henrico, is, because, criminals don't respect lines on a map. Senator Chase is with us this morning. We've already talked to her two opponents who are trying to get the Republican nomination for this Senate seat in Chesterfield, Tina Ramirez and Glenn Sturdivant, who are kind of fighting back and forth. So, Senator Chase, good morning to you. I appreciated what you posted on Facebook. What was the reaction to that?
Well, let me just begin by saying public safety is one of the top issues, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. People want to operate their business. They want to go to school, live their lives without fear of these random attacks. In the middle of a graduation, you're experiencing gun violence. Okay, I'm 100% against gun violence. But how we deal and react with that, like it or not, involves politics. Mm-hmm. The politicians we elect are going to affect the policies. And I don't understand why we got rid of Project Exile. Let's have a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years for people who are convicted felons that are caught with a gun. I introduced legislation and have since the gun grab that took place in 2020 to repeal unconstitutional gun grabs by the government through red flag laws. My opponent, Glenn Sturdivant, while he was my seatmate in the Senate, was the only Republican to support red flag laws. So I've introduced legislation to repeal that. No one wants to go to downtown Richmond right now, including me, and we work here, because it's not safe. Mayor Stoney has totally introduced ordinances because of the legislation the General Assembly passed that allows him to restrict the rights of law-abiding citizens to carry. And so the criminals know that we're sitting ducks. Our rights as individuals are not protected. Our constitutional rights are not being protected in these Democrat-controlled cities. And that's where the crime is occurring. And what's happening to Richmond, and we've talked about this since 2020, all the gun violence, where is that occurring? It is occurring in gun-free zones. In the gun-free zone, allow law-abiding citizens to protect themselves, and that will keep our streets safe. Now, we're not going to eliminate it altogether because, people, we need to address the mental health issues. We need to address the psychotropic drugs that a lot of these people are on that are increasing their risk of acting in such an evil way. That's what we need to address. But, the laws are going after law-abiding citizens. And look, what is it that Democrats say after we come out and we say, the families, first of all, are in our thoughts and prayers. And what is the thing they say? No, we want action. Well, you know what? I want action too. I want to put an end to gun-free zones and stop going after law-abiding citizens. That's how we end gun violence.
Well, that's why these Democrats are so upset about Winsome Sears. Is she, and it seems like you, are exposing the bad decisions that have been made, and now we're facing the consequences of those bad decisions about not locking up people who demonstrate that they're going to be violent. And they know, holy cow, they've got us on this politically. And it's, to me, it's not about Republicans beating Democrats. It's about making smart decisions to save the lives of people in minority communities. And for my family that comes down to Richmond pretty regularly, I'm going to think twice about it. I hate to say that, but you got to think twice about it. I feel like I might be a target. I would prefer not to walk right into a situation where bullets may be flying.
Well, you're exactly right. I think that's why this race is so important. And one of the top issues that we saw in 2020, whenever the Democrats took control of the House and the Senate, Governor Northam was the governor at the time. They went after our guns. The parole board released violent offenders during COVID, and at the same time, they came after our gun rights. I have VCDL's endorsement. I have a 100% rating with the Virginia Citizens Defense League and an A rating with NRA 8 years in a row. Voting records are going to matter in Senate District 12, and I have a lifetime 8-year rating. I have never voted for gun control. I go on the record for that, and people may like it or not, but that's where I stand on the issue. I will never vote to restrict a law-abiding citizen's gun rights, and I'm the only candidate of the three of us that carries in my daily life because I've been assaulted 3 different times, even at the Capitol, even while there were Capitol Police around. And I understand, it's a person's right whether they choose to exercise that right or not, but it's protected not only under the U.S. Constitution, but the Virginia Constitution.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you before I run out of time about what your opponents have been talking about the last 2 days on the air. It's kind of devolved into some ugly political stuff. Have you heard those interviews? Is there anything you wanted to respond to about that? It was surprising to me that your name wasn't even brought up in those conversations.
Well, I've been busy door knocking, and honestly, I have not even listened to their interviews because I'm so busy talking to the people at the doors. And I've been really encouraged. When I walk to the doors, they've actually heard me on your show on WRVA. And they appreciate that I have a backbone, that I'm a conservative fighter for the people and a disruptor to the political establishment. And
and you're okay with that? Because, Senator Chase, some people have said that they like you, they've liked you, they appreciate the voice. But I've had a couple of people say you're just too hot. You're too disruptive and maybe not a team player. What would you say to respond to that? Because I think that's kind of the main knock on you, I think.
Well, it depends on who you're asking. Now,
that's right. That's true.
Politicians, if you're asking lobbyists, of course they're going to say that because I don't go along to get along with people who say we're not going to talk about what the issues that are important to the people. You even had Republican leadership saying during the height of COVID, we're not going to talk about mask mandates. We're not going to talk about vaccine mandates. We're not going to talk about 20 presidential election being stolen. And so in that void, in that absence, I've been a leader and a champion on the issues that are important to the people. And did I make them uncomfortable? I'm sure I did. But, I work for the people, and I've never forgotten that. I'm a very agreeable person. I'm not a hothead. You know that. I think the media likes to create a story, but when people get to know me, and I do work well with my colleagues, and I've gotten a lot of legislation back. My opponents they lie about your voting record. That's pretty normal, but I have never ever. I get it, but it depends on who you're asking. The people love me, and I get things done. The Healthcare Transparency Act, the coal ash cleanup, veterans tax cut, the Labor Day.
I'm over time, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that and to respond to what I kind of keep hearing from people, and that's I want people to hear your answer. And I appreciate the fact that you and your opponents have come on so often. And we will find out what the Republican voters in Chesterfield decide on the 20th of this month, and everybody's voting now. Senator Amanda Chase, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, John. And remember, I'm the only candidate who does not accept money from PACs or lobbyists. Very important.
Very good. Amanda Chase, we talked to Tina Ramirez 2 days ago. We talked to Glenn Sturdom yesterday. I'm trying to be fair with everyone and give everybody a chance to speak on the radio before voters make their decisions. We will be back with more in just a moment here.